Hello, hello, RSC people. You are watching week 22 on the Pre-Jump podcast. You've got your boy, Bas Radala here, joined by Rob, as always, and Mr. TechFour making a comeback tour. Fellas, how's your night going?
Oh, having a good time so far. Excited to dive into some of these numbers and, just recap how RSC's been going so far.
I didn't lie to you guys. I won't lie to the viewers. I remembered this about 12 minutes ago, and we're ready to go.
We're cooking.
Hey, man, that's the way to do it. Just roll in last second RSC style, you know what I'm saying? But let's go ahead and jump right on into the content for the day. We'll talk a little bit about our top 5 breakdown for each tier. We're going to go ahead and start us off with Premier. Staying in first place, the Crooked Capos are at 26-6, followed by Hurricanes in second at 23-9. Interstellar and Tarbage Crux tied for third at 21-11, and the Gummy Bears at 18-14. And fellas, Crooked Capos are looking like the team to beat. They are sitting atop that throne, and they're not giving it up anytime soon.
Yeah, 16-4 over their last 20. I mean, they've been right there. 3-game lead over number 2, 5-game lead over number 3 and 4. Pretty good.
And not only that, but they 3-1 the Viperfish and 2-2'd the Tarbage Grux. So, I mean, that team is not playing around, right? So they're having success against the good teams, and they're walloping the bad teams, or the ones who are at least underperforming right now. And so, I mean, that's what you look for a team at the top, right? Not dropping games against their competition and beating everyone they're supposed to. And it seems like that's what they've done so far.
Well, and you see that all the time. Teams that are killing it, they'll play maybe slightly worse off competition, and for some reason they'll play down, where they'll go, oh yeah, you're the 25th best team in this tier. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna take it easy on you. And oh god, we just dropped 2 games.
Yeah.
And suddenly your first place standings are not quite as safe as you'd like. But this team really does. I mean, I think they've only dropped like 3 games to teams under 16. Under 16th place or something like that. Like, it's a crazy stat, if I remember right.
Yeah, I'm looking at their schedule so far, and how they've played. The only series that they haven't 3-1'd or better, the only series they haven't won is with the Tarbage Grux, who have, and that's Anti's team, right? We'll end Lyrics, and we'll start talking about them at a little bit later, right? But if that team doesn't even beat you, right? That team is currently third? Tied for third, the Tarbage Grux, and they've recently had the acquisition to get 2 of what a lot of people see as the top 5 or 10 players in Premier, and so if not even more than that. So to 2-2 that team, right? I personally was looking at the Tarbage Grux and I was saying, okay, I want to see if anyone is able to kind of hang with them, and to see the Crooked Capos Capos just come out and keep on performing at an extremely high level. I don't know. It says a lot.
Fair point. Well, Rob, I think that kind of wraps up Prem. Let me throw it your way here. Let's get into some Master standings.
Alrighty, moving into Master. Not that much movement throughout the top of this tier here. We got remaining in first place. You got your Tempests at 22-10. Right behind them are Heinous Henchmen at 20-12. Just below is a 2-way tie at third at 19-13. And you have 3 teams tied for 5th at 18-14 with the Basilisks, Chimera, and Hell, with just the Basilisks making it onto our graphic here. That is a lot of teams with not so different of a record, right? The Tempests are still 2 games up, but it's a very small gap. And you look at 2 more games, I'm talking about that being a small gap, that's the same as 2nd and 7th. So the top of this tier is really, really up for anybody right now.
Yeah, and so what I would say is really interesting, and when you look at the top of this tier, is when you look at Tempest and Heinous Henchmen, you look at the strength of schedules.
Yeah.
So far, Tempest over 500 of the teams they played. Like, the teams they played have gone over 500.
They've had the second hardest schedule of anyone in Master this season, and they're in first. That's a great point.
Yeah, and usually when you're up in first, your strength of schedule is going to be bad because you have beaten all the teams.
Yeah. You have more losses because you have more wins.
Which when you extend that into the rest of the season, they have the easiest schedule coming up out of anybody. They could run away with this.
So looking at their record, they're 2-2'd against the Care Bears, 2-2'd the I'm not even gonna say it. Alpaca franchise, the Herd, and they 2-2'd the Heinous Henchmen and the Chimeras. They have not dropped a series the entire season. And as we were talking about, again, I mean, right, they're in first, they haven't lost much. But to really not lose a single series for this deep into the season, like that really speaks to your consistency of that high level of play.
You did not totally just go, yeah, the Herd. Ignore that team name because holy cow, I can't pronounce. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm in the same boat.
Ayahuasca, I guess. I don't know.
I'm in the same boat, man. He picked a whole bunch of team names that I just can't pronounce, and I don't look forward to it when I cast.
That's my guess on the record. Huacayas.
I run a franchise based off ancient, like elder gods, and they're worse than we are. That's ridiculous.
Oh, 100%.
I didn't even know there's many different types of alpacas, man. It's educational at the very least.
I do want to give a quick shout out before we move on to Elite. Syndicate really flipped things around because I remember last season their Prem and their Master teams struggled all the way through the season and they just could not find their footing. They really couldn't get a lot of dubs behind them. But this season, it's not, I mean, you see them consistently in either first or second, and it really is a solid flip of fortune.
Also, shout out my eggplants. Sorry, not to just skip over that, but I almost forgot to mention the team that I'm on, and I can't afford to do that. I think I have a streak going right now, the longest streak in pre-jump history, because it's since I joined, of homering my team, and I can't afford to let that die. Sunk cost fallacy, call it what you want. Can't forget it.
Fair enough. Zach, you want to take us into Elite here?
Sure, we'll jump over to Elite. In first place, we have Pixel Picassos at 24-8. In second place, we have a two-way tie between the Ghastly Goombas and the Cyclones at 22-10. At fourth place, we have another two-way tie between Midnight and Azathoth at 21-11.
I mean, what jumps out to me immediately? Yeah, there's a lot of teams at 20 wins there. You look at Master, you have 2 teams at 20 wins. You look at Prem, you got 4. You look at Elite, and you have 8 or 7 of them. Right, that is a lot. And then you have, like, obviously there's more teams in Elite, but you also have like 5 more at 1 win behind them. That is a extremely, extremely close tier.
Well, and you like to see it. I mean, there's going to be a couple tiers later on that we talk about that are going to be a little bit more of a runaway situation, where one team really is just establishing their dominance and saying, hey, we're going to probably take the chip this season. But I say it every week, I'm pretty sure. I love to see a tier like Elite this season where you've got so many that are vying for it, even midway through the season. Like, nobody's really out. Because you said there's 7 teams with 20 wins or more. There's 6 teams tied for 8th right behind that with 19 and 13. Like, they're also doing pretty solid. So it's this many teams this close to the top is always something nice to watch.
And piggybacking off that, something very similar is there's not that many like teams that are doing that poorly in RSC right now. You see 3 teams in Elite have 8 losses. You go to Master, there's 1 team with less than 10. You go to Prem, there's 2 teams with less than 10. So as a common theme for me over the existence of this pod has been kind of railing numbers committee a little bit, right? You saw the Hammerheads last season. I think there's not a single, like, it's almost every tier in first place already has more losses than the Hammerheads had for like their entire season last season, right? And so I'm gonna kind of do a 180 on that and pat numbers on the back, because I think they did an incredible job of balancing out a lot of these tiers, right? And especially with some of the growth and movement that we had in formatting of the league this season, that's a really cool thing to see, is that all these tiers have this parity, and even the bottom and the top aren't too far away.
It'll be interesting to see kind of what happens down the stretch, especially when you're looking at those last few teams that are all vying for those playoff spots. And it is going to be a little bit crazy when you have probably 10 different teams vying for like 3 spots left.
I do want to call out and show a little bit of attention to the Lunar Ocean tier. Ghastly Goombas 22 and 10, Soldering Slugs 19 and 13, Teddy Bears are 18 and 14. So there are 3 teams from that are so far like they could theoretically make the playoffs, but that team, that Teddy Bears, is actually outside of the playoff race at 18 and 14.
Let me do you one better, boss. You know, the only tier that actually has all 4 in playoffs is Lunar Ember.
Yep.
19 and 13, 19 and 13, 20 and 12, and 21 and 11. And so you actually have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have 10 teams above 500 in Lunar and Elite right now, and 7 of them are from 2 divisions. 7 of the top 10 teams in Lunar and Elite are from 2 divisions. That's insane. That's insane.
Well, and it's nuts that the bar for making playoffs out of Elite is 19 and 13, because you would think going 18 and 14 at this point in time would be enough, but it's just not.
Well, you look at the other side, Solar's bar is not that high, right? You have 2 teams at 16 and 16, 1 team at 17 and 18 in there. So the 6th seed in Solar, or the 9th seed in Lunar would be the 6th seed in Solar, and it extends for even 2 more teams not in the playoffs in Lunar would make them in Solar right now.
Yeah, which is absolutely wild. But I just want to point out, somebody just messaged me asking if I want to play Rocket League games right now, and I'm like,
They
yeah,
must know
I'll
you very well.
Do they have a tournament that they need you to help run?
Yeah.
Apparently.
Here, log in with your Steam.
Moving into veteran, let's talk about our top 5 here. Staying in first, we've got the only team from Lunar making the top 5. We've got the Sea Devils in second place at 24 and 8, actually tied for second place at 24 and 8. You've got Need for Speed and Possessed. Gorillas are sitting squarely in fourth at 22 and 10, and then the Blues are sitting untied in fifth place at 21 and 11. And my man, like, it's crazy when you see so many teams above that 20 win spot, but then you've got 3 teams that are 24 and up, like, that are still sitting single digit losses. That's nuts.
Not just that gap, but the one between the Sea Devils and the rest of their conference. Right, there are all of those teams above 20 wins, and they're the only one from Lunar. To have a 5-game lead on your conference this early, I don't want to. It's never over till it's over, right? You just have favorites and whatnot. But Sea Devils really seem to be. Not only are they first in the entire tier, but they have those 5 games than anyone else in their entire conference. Like, they seem to be really separating themselves in this spot right now.
Yeah, I don't really have much here. I'll be honest with you. It looks like a really, really fun tier. I'll tell you what, I subbed up for Scrims one night. It was the most miserable experience of my life.
You've subbed in vet? Let's go.
We didn't have a rival to put up. We didn't have a Chally to put up.
How'd you do?
So...
Can you send me the ball chasing? Do you have one?
Oh, I'm sure I do. I think I broke 101 game. We'll see.
Let's go.
Yeah, like obviously Sea Devils, kind of crazy, especially having that lead on the conference is huge. But I mean, you look right down through this. We're talking about kind of that playoff cutoff. In Solar, you're looking at 18 and 14. Lunar, you're looking 17 and 15. But there's a lot of teams right outside that can make those pushes.
Yeah, it's gonna be close, man. That's going to be a theme throughout this season, right? It's going to be close. It'll be fun to, as these things develop and as kind of storylines start to create themselves and they shape, it'll be really fun to follow those in tiers like this, where you have such a tight race for that 2 spots that are really even up for grabs.
You said you played in the vet series?
Not in the
That's
series.
that's scrim.
In
That's scrim.
Oh, and that script. Darn it, man. I was sifting through season 18 XPP listing looking for tech. Dude, you performed well when you subbed up to Chally. So I was like, what the
Sub up
heck?
to
Maybe
vet, though?
maybe you drop like a dude, if he had like a 30 or higher, it's an incredible sub.
That's true.
Yeah, God no. 30 points in the game, maybe.
It's a mindset thing, Tech. You're the greatest. You know how to win at any level.
True.
Don't let
true.
them. Don't let them tell you anything otherwise.
Yeah, sign players that are better than you. That's how you do it.
That's a good GM right there. Perfect. Well, is it my turn?
It is your turn.
Alrighty. Well, taking us into Rival, you got interesting at the top. You have the Vikings in sole possession of first place at 25-7. You have Cursed right behind them at 23-9. The Necrotic Nerds and the Carrots are tied for 22-10, and then Tort Reform has sole possession of fifth place at 21-11. Immediately, again, the Vikings up there with a phenomenal record, right? 25-7. That it seems that there's only a few tiers that have a team with this level of performance so far. And what's even crazier to me is they have those 7 losses, and 5 of them have come from division opponents. So outside of the first couple weeks, they've really, really been on a tear.
For sure. And I just want to point out somebody who's actually really heating up, but it doesn't quite show it in the standings. Going 14-6 in the last 5 match days, you got Tort Reform, but they just went 4-0 against the Tardy Tortoises this last match day. So the team that was originally in third as of the end of Monday, they just walked in, 4-0'd them pretty badly, actually, if I remember right, and leapfrogged a whole bunch of teams to move into that 5th spot. If they continue to stay as hot as they are and continue to body such solid talent, realistically, we might see this team that hasn't been on our top 5 standings stay here for quite some time.
Yeah, and if we're going to shout out teams here, I want to shout out Hot Wings. This is a team that is 18-14, has had a solid season so far, awkwardly sitting in 12th place by themselves because we have, 6 different teams tied at 19-13. But if you jump over to their strength of schedule, they have not had it easy this season of who they've played. And frankly, it doesn't get any easier as the season goes along either. But they have absolutely performed. This last week has been a little bit rougher on them. Last 5 matches going 11-9. But the team, based on who they've played, I think they're a lot better than what their record says they are.
Fair enough. I mean, realistically, any team that's going against that solid of a strength of schedule, you're going to see them at least make it to playoffs. So I would suspect we're going to see them make it and then potentially take some solid wins, especially in the opening rounds against these higher rated teams.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's kind of all we really got for Rival. Let's throw it over to Tech here for some Chally.
Yeah, sure. Staying on top, we actually have a tie here at 24-8. We have Slice Baby and the Toucans. Alone in third place is Abyss at 23-9. Alone in fourth place is the Zombies at 22-10. And then we have a 3-way tie for that 5th place spot with Shigami, Slow Starfish, and Penne Patrol all at 21-11.
This is kind of
Again,
wild. Sorry, go ahead.
That's just a lot of teams at the top. It's a lot of teams to have more than 20 wins, right? You're talking 8 teams are at least 20-12. 8 teams with at least a 62% win rate. That's a really, really strong top of the field.
Well, and it's kind of wild too, because this was the tier for a while that we had one team way out in front. Slice Baby was killing it for the beginning of the season and looked like they were going to be the undisputed Chally team. This last week, with a little bit of a struggle, Toucans have already caught up. Like, that gap, I think it was like a 4-game gap, gone instantly. So at any point in time, you can't take your foot off the gas pedal. This is really showing that if you're in first, you still need to go out, take some dubs, and feel your standings.
Yeah, and talking about that Toucans team, I mean, you're looking just over this past week, a 7-1 record, beating Threshers 3-1 and then Tarantulas 4-0. So that'll catch you up real quick.
Well, and yeah, even more than just like you have to make sure that you're winning games, boss. To your point, they 2-2'd the last 2 match days, right? You would think that if you're in first place by a number of games, you're going 2-2, 2-2, whatever, it's okay, we're still here. But all of a sudden, like these other teams that are gaining momentum, you really got to keep your foot on the gas. You really can't let them make that gap up, or before you know it, a couple more 2-2s, a couple more 4-0s from the other guys, and you're going to be down there in 5th or 6th. You know, it's hard to do. It's hard to stay up there.
For sure. And with 8 teams above that 20 win mark, there's a lot of teams that are really looking to, down the stretch, steal a series here, steal a series there, get a good placement, and play a much worse off team in the playoffs. So every game really matters at this point in time in the season. I will say though, as we roll, do you guys have anything else for Chally before I roll us in the prospect?
Prospect's good.
Be my guess.
This is probably the one tier. Sorry, Rob, were you about to say something? That's my bad.
No, I could be my guest, is what I said.
Oh, sweet. I was going to say, this is the one tier where there really is just one team at the top. You've got the Spaghetti Scouts, who after this last week move a full match day ahead of everybody else. They're sitting at 23-9. Second place is currently a 2-way tie at 19-13 between Earth and Darkness. And then there is a 5-wave tie for 4th place between the Undead, Whiskey Business, Sparks, Pepperoni Pizza, and Detention Demons. So,
the one thing that I do want to point out, just because I have to be that guy, is that, who are they? Who's in first? I have it zoomed out too much.
Spaghetti Scouts.
Thank you. The Spaghetti Scouts have the lowest strength schedule played so far. They have played the weakest opponent so far. Now, while that does not inherently mean that they are frauds, we've seen a couple other teams in other tiers. I'm not saying that they're frauds. Don't make that. He used
the fraud word. Holy cow!
That's not what I'm saying.
Flip it.
But you see someone like the Tempest, and this is gonna be clipped in my DMs by tomorrow because no one ever watched 5 seconds past it.
True.
But you see teams in Master like Tempests, right, who have a really strong strength of schedule. Like they've played a really tough schedule and they're still in first. And so you really know that team has earned its way there for sure. They've been grinding to get to that spot. But a couple of these teams of Spaghetti Scouts have 3-1 or 4-0'd are 13-19, 11-21, 11-21. And so it's yet to be seen. I think that they definitely could be the real deal, right? But when the rest of the tier is this close, second and then last place are separated by 2 match days. That is the closest I have ever seen a single tier this late in the season. And so it leads me to believe that the next team is also that close. And when it's only a 4-game separation, a little bit of schedule luck could be that gap. So maybe there's not that skill gap that it might look like in the rankings right now.
I will say too, I mean, you know what? Fuck it. We'll go in. They are absolute frauds. This team is not good.
Okay, let's go, Tech. Someone clip this one instead of mine.
Yeah. No, clip this and send it to Rob.
Oh my goodness.
Go in on it.
Let's go.
Let's be real. I mean, so my team, Bockrog, who is bottom of the barrel, not a good team in Prospect. We just played the Spaghetti Scouts. Not Wednesday. We must have played them on Monday.
Send me the ball chasing.
I'll send you the ball chasing for sure. I'll pull that up.
This guy hates the Spaghetti Scouts. Oh my god.
No, I don't hate them at all. I mean, they beat us. Don't get me wrong. But I will say, we took a game off them. Another game, they only beat us by 1 goal. I think it was an overtime game. They're better than we are, no doubt, but we're not really that great of a team. And it seemed like a game that they should have 4-0'd us. So them kind of getting into those games that they need to win or they should win and then dropping one, It's going to be interesting when they start playing some of the other top teams. I'm not sure how many of them they've played so far yet, but especially when it comes to playoffs, I know their record is better than everybody else, but it'll be really interesting when those matches really matter up against those other top teams if they actually hold on to it.
You tell them, Tech.
Not to sound
shit.
like the total contrarian here, but I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I was looking through, so I've seen some people make predictions last time, and they kind of talk trash, and that team kind of bounced back and clapped back pretty hard. But I want to talk about the fact that this Spaghetti Scouts team is across the board doing pretty solid on the season. So subject Tion Ligas from Spaghetti Scouts, 69.9 SPV. Then their next three, as we're looking through it here, Led Tasso, great name by the way, 59.9, or 59.9. Insane Fox, 52.7, and even their fourth, Avex Inceptions, is currently sitting at 42.4. So like as a whole, I can't call this team frauds. They all look solid on the pitch, and I definitely think it's going to translate to more wins down the line.
We'll see. I would put money that someone else wins this tier.
Yeah, I don't know. I immediately pulled up the RPV sheet, and what I noticed is that they don't have a player in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They have the 10th and then the 23rd highest RPVs as their top 2. And if you're talking about a team that is the favorite, it usually looks a little bit different than that. And that's ignoring a few that have played even like 10 and 12 and 16 matches. So, I mean, it's fine. They seem to be doing well. I'm happy for them, but they don't seem to be the runaway or the favorite in ways that some of the other teams in other tiers give that impression numerically.
I will tell you who's going to win this tier right now. And you actually have to look down the standings a little bit to find them, but that's the Sparks. They have completely changed their roster within the last couple weeks. First game with new roster, they 4-0'd Barbarians. Second game with new rosters, they 4-0'd Inert Enemies. Third game, they had an off game, 1-3 Pepperoni Pizza. Fourth game, 4-0 Skeletons. They have lost. They have not 4-0'd once since changing up their entire roster.
Yeah, their new roster is 13-3. Both Slowlo and Trav have played 16 matches, and they are 15 and 35 RPV above the next highest player.
They're dominant,
respectively.
Absolutely dominant.
Yeah, so you make a really good point here. I don't know if I can agree immediately that they're winning the tier, but I would say that the ball is in other teams' court now, right? Like if there's still a lot of the way to go. There's still teams can improve, teams can mesh, teams can get coaching, players can grind. All of these things are factors. We have enough time for this to matter. But if the playoffs started tomorrow, I think I would agree with your point, right? Like they are performing at a really, really high level right now. And it seems to be theirs to lose.
Fair point. Fair point. Well, Rob, I think we talked about Prospect for quite some time now. Let's go ahead and shimmy on to an even better tier. Let's talk about Tendy.
Alrighty, taking us away. Oh my gosh, it's this team again. Yeah, Dagon up there at 27-5. Why did we get Tech, man? We should have got somebody else for this episode. Dagon at 27-5. The Wisps at 23-9, right behind them. Gluttony at 22-10. Gallery Guild at 20-12, and then in sole possession of 5th, you have Cheese Pizza at 18-14. Speaking of frauds,
Tech does not homer at all. Like, even when his teams are killing it, he is a stud to keep it level.
That's because he knows that I'm going to read it, and I have to say it out loud, and that's all he needs. I don't actually think that Dagon are frauds. We'll talk about a high-level matchup from them, not in just a little bit of time, but it's a top-heavy tier, right? You have a 2-game jump from 5th to 4th, another 2-game jump from 4th to 3rd, a game jump to second, and then a 4-game jump to first. So you see these top teams really starting to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. Another Dagon team, man, just sitting there, just dumpstering on the tier. Something that we've seen for far too long.
Well, and what's wild is normally you see in most tiers, if you're going at least 500, you've got a shot at the playoffs. You know, like there's like a chance it might come down to goal differential or in division play. But the fact that right now in Tendy, 2 teams are at 500 and neither qualify for the playoffs is wild. Like it's just it's not in the normal purview that I would expect from any tier.
Well, it's interesting too, right? Because you look at one of those 2 teams that are 500. It's Ice. They were in the finals last year, but qualified for playoffs at 500.
Yeah.
RSC decided to get rid of the conferences in this division. I think that was really smart, and you're going to see a lot more competitive, not just the playoff run, but potentially the finals here. That was a little bit of a shame last season where
Ionic,
you had
right?
Ionic. Yeah, Ionic got knocked out in semis, and they were absolutely a team that should have been in the finals.
Would have loved to watch that matchup on stream and had that be the. I think that's the ultimate point you're getting at, right? Is the content like this RSC, especially the stream matches, the media. It's an entertainment business, right? And at the end of the day, what is more entertaining? Watching a team that's scraped by because of the way that the conferences are aligned, or is it watching the 2 best teams in the tier who are pushing win records each, competing, going to 5 games? Like I would have tuned in, and that's a viewer that they didn't get on the other stream. So,
dude, and that was an overtime game 5 too. It was crazy. Go ahead, Bas.
I heard it was nuts.
I loved casting that series. Not gonna lie, it was a great series to just watch firsthand.
But yeah, no, talking about those top teams here, obviously you have Dagon. I'm not going to stick on them. And of course, we'll talk about a matchup. But, you know, I don't know much about a lot of teams in this tier. I'm not going to just lie and say I do. But I can tell you Wisp and Gluttony are both fantastic teams that absolutely have a shot at winning any given day. We'll talk a little bit more about an example of that in a little bit. But it's not just Dagon here. There is at least 3 teams that are very good.
Well, before moving off that, right? Like there's 3 teams that are really good, and then you have the player leading the way by a mile in RPV and goals per game. And it's a light MCC, right? And they're in 6th right now, 17 and 15. So if they've missed 8 matches performing at an extremely high level, like there's a lot of time left in this season for a lot of players and a lot of teams to make this push and really fight for their spot if they hadn't had the luck so far.
So I'm glad you actually bring that up, because we're going to see something that you don't actually get to see in a lot of other tiers. So normally when you want to make that push, you might change a player here. You cannot rely on the FA pool this season. There's only 6 free agents that are non-perm FA that you can pick up full-time for your team right now, which is wild because a lot of other tiers have like a pretty decent depth in their player count. So realistically, we're going to see a lot of teams, especially midway to the bottom, probably give up on the season and say, hey, it's probably not viable. We're going to chop shop our team, try to get some picks out of it, and reload for next season. And a lot of the teams at the top are probably going to start acquiring some of the better talent to superload going into the playoffs. Which I think is kind of a unique dynamic that we don't get to see in a lot of tiers.
That's cool, yeah. That's how it works in a lot of real leagues as well, right? The contenders are the ones who are interested in the players. They give some futures, right? And then that helps the teams rebuild that maybe don't have the pieces, while the contenders get that extra push towards the top. So I do think that it's cool that it's just another way. I love how Rocket League as an esport really exemplifies being an electronic sport, and I think that our league does a really good job of bringing that aspect into it, and this is just another way that's really cool.
For sure. Well, Tech, only one tier stands in the way between us and segment number 2 here.
And it's the best one of them all.
You betcha.
Going over to Amy, we have Nightfall sitting in first place, 24 and 8. Second place, we have Surprise. Back at it again, 23 and 9. Sloth, third place, 22 and 10. And then tied for fourth place, At 17 and 15 apiece, we have Bunts of Steel and House Salads.
This tier's pretty straightforward. Like, if you're going 500 and up, you're probably making the playoffs. If you're not at least 500, you're out. So pretty straightforward across the board. There's really 3 teams though that are like, hey, we're making a stamp here for the chip.
Those have also been the 3 teams that we have been talking about every week, right? If you look at the top 4 RPVs, it goes Sloth, Nightfall, Sloth, Nightfall. And then you have a surprise player along with a couple of Bunts of Steel, and then you go again Sloth, Nightfall. So you have those 2 teams at the top, both win record-wise and stat-wise. You have surprise not putting up the numbers, but again, that really doesn't mean too much, especially in a tier like amateur, where there's a lot of different ways to win. But it seems that Sloth and Nightfall all have 3 players that are capable of winning you a game or a series on any individual night, and Nightfall. And I would not be surprised to see either of them win
This
it.
is a disease that Moose brought in last week, and it's just horrible because it spreads so fast.
Or slow, like the Sloth. They're also a good team in amateur.
Now, honest question for you fellas. So, AMI last season was upset city. Like, I think we just lost. Did we just lose 10?
It was too bad of a joke.
I was not saying
He
that.
was done. Yeah.
Oh. Oh, God.
I guess you could say he was sacrificed. For those of you who don't see, they're in 7th in AMI right now.
Anywho, last season it was upset city. Brass and Cathilla both getting dropped in the opening round, 1 and 2. They look like the most dynamic teams on the pitch. Realistically, do you guys foresee that potentially happening this season, or do you guys think that we're going to finally see a return to normalcy where the top team just takes it?
Oh, Amy's fucking wild, man. Anything can happen at any time. Like, that you can have top teams. You can have teams that are better. But, you know, in a tier like Elite, if you have a team that is better than the team that they're playing, they're going to win 80% of the time. In a tier like AMI, you have a team that is better than the team they're winning. They're going to win like 52% of the time.
Yeah.
Like, you can see anything happen, especially playoffs. Especially, I mean, a lot of times your AMI players are your brand new players to RSC. A lot of times they've never really like had these stressful situations in gaming before. You go into playoffs, anything can happen. The big thing is just getting into playoffs and seeing what happens from there.
I really do agree with that. I think that if there were any semblance of consistency in the gameplay, for the most part, they wouldn't be in the tier that they are. But that being said, there is also some level of hitting the ball more, being a little bit faster, being in a little bit better spots. And I think that's what you're seeing from our top 3 teams. I think that I'm not confident that they're all going to be the top 3 at the end of the season, but I am more confident than I have been in the past in other teams in AMI, because it's not a lot of the times the good teams in AMI, and the reason there's that they can bounce between being good and bad so frequently is because they rely on one player. Was it Raichu last season? And
Raichu,
your girl is my side hoe. Yeah.
Yep.
And both of them were good, but those were the teams that got upset. And it was
Raichu is actually on Elastic, who won the chip.
Okay. Well, sorry, I have a few things jumbled in my head, but some teams that have been very good throughout the regular season have players that can just pop off in these lower tiers, and that is the thing that when we're looking at consistency and we're looking at playoffs, and are you going to hit the air dribble that you don't hit with that consistency in a stressful moment? If you're in the playoffs, are you going to be able to solo take your team there? And with these 3 teams, it seems like it's a really team effort, and that's not that common of a thing in this tier. So I am pretty confident in these 3.
Fair enough. Well, fellas, I think that wraps up our top 5 tiers. We can move on to segment 2 and talk, and maybe do a little bit of backtracking here and talk about that Tendy matchup. I mean, I cast that with Fiend, and that was electric all the way through. It was just slunging it back and forth. Lots of fantastic shots. But what really stood out to you guys?
I mean, I would say what stood out to me was really Gluttony and their ability to take kind of a big loss game one, and they took a lot of pressure from that Dagon team, and really like didn't get flustered, and just played really good Rocket League for Contender. And I think that kind of ability to kind of stay grounded and keep playing, even though especially after game one, I think an outside viewer could have looked in and said probably Dagon's the better team here. They were still able to plug away and get really good wins. That'll translate to playoffs huge. That mentality is so important.
Yeah, if you and they lost the first 2 games and won the next 2, correct, Gluttony?
Correct. Yep.
So yeah, that especially when the team that you're going up against is on pace for the win record and you lose the first 2, it is really, really easy to tell yourself, "Oh man, just not our week." But we meet these guys in playoffs and we got them, and you can just give up in that moment, right? But for a team who again may not have as much competitive experience, to hand this team after a 2-0, starting with 2 straight losses, hand Dagon 2 of their only 5 losses of the entire season. So 40% of their losses, Dagon's, were this night as Gluttony turned it around. And so it leads me to wonder, if this were a best of 7 series, how does it go? Right? If Dagon is given a chance to punch back, do they do so, or is Gluttony just running away with it? I think, I mean, the 3 1-goal games, 1 2-goal game, super close. But what jumps out to me statistically was the shot versus save difference. You had a couple players in particular really, really impressed with that. Heartless Wins had 18 shots with only 2 goals this series. And that was in large part due to Balto and Sky High having 11 and 9 saves this series, respectively. So you saw Dagon just applying a ton of pressure and Gluttony eating it up. Oh my goodness. I'm on fire today. But
That's pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think
It was actually unintended. That's why it was like remotely funny. I didn't plan it. So
I think the one thing that Fiend and I really took away when we watched, we watched the cast, we cast our way through it, and then afterwards we talked a little bit about it, was the level of patience that some of these Contender players were playing with. Like Lorak was sitting back post so consistently, especially for a Tendy player. It had me off guard because he wouldn't just dive at the ball, he wouldn't just elevate super quickly. He'd go, "Hey, I need to wait here. Let's see what his touch looks like. Okay, now I can contest this. Now I can push into the corner and let's establish a counterattack." And it worked really well through the first 2 games. So I just want to point out all the props to him because he played incredible all series.
Yeah, Lorak's a really interesting player at that low level. Like, I'd almost call him like the Moose of Contender, in that like he knows what he's doing. Well, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He plays very slow, methodical. He's in the right positions. His mechanics are fine for Contender, like not anything special, but like the guy is smart.
So one thing that's super interesting is he actually led the entire lobby in speed, with a whopping 1483 as his number, which is really, really high for Contender, especially if you're playing productively, right? Like that requires a lot of car control. So if we're talking about this player both being patient and quick and knowing what that requires, like this, they could be really, really good in this tier. And as we see, they're 27 and 5, right? But that's not as you were talking about, that's not commonplace for a Contender player.
No, normally you see patience and then also quickness on top of that, typically at like IC3 GC level starting. Like you don't normally see that in the low tiers. So that could be a combo where we might start seeing Lorak creep up and potentially move up the tiers throughout the next couple seasons.
Absolutely. Interesting stats. Fun.
For sure, for sure. I don't really have anything else. This was a pretty even series. Do you guys have anything else for this series at all, or are you guys ready to move on to Wednesday's matchup?
The only thing I would say is I would shout out both teams. They gave the viewers, the casters, exactly what everyone wanted. If we can have all of our games like that on stream, it'll be a real good season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do love
I
when they
agree.
give us the old TechFour curse.
I wonder what these teams will take from this and how this will affect if and when they meet in playoffs, right? The familiarity from having a series played, having some replays to go watch of even yourselves against this team. It'll be really interesting to see how that plays into some deeper matchups.
For sure, for sure. Well, speaking of a little bit of a matchup we can take a deeper dive in, let's talk about our Wednesday matchup here. Let's talk about that stagnant snails, I believe, when that was trash compactors.
I
Yep.
heard the stagnant stales have the Lorac of Elite or Master. Sorry.
The Lorac of Master.
Yeah, a dead moose.
I'll jump in and
Oh,
say
buddy.
if the Contender Series gave us as viewers exactly what we wanted to see, the Master Series, oh baby, Stagnant Stales came out and took game one, and then
We're
they didn't play
stagnant.
well. They were not good.
Yeah, I just from looking at the stats at this, it looks like the stagnant stales kind of outplayed them. Not with shots, right? It seems that they just gave him a ton of pressure. Oh wow, I just completely lied. The shots numbers are absurd. I did not watch this, to be completely fair. I'm looking at the numbers. They were outshot 37-13, but they were only outscored 6-4.
So like I think they scored two. Stagnant Stales scored two goals game one to win it 2-0. Their only score in game, I think it was two, was an own goal. And then Moose was incredible on defense, but like midfield, Stagnant Stales could never get out. They couldn't pass it through midfield. They couldn't get out of their own zone. It was crazy.
Well, and this is something that we predicted could be a problem for this team because this is the cheapest master team I think we've ever seen by far.
Yep.
And I mean, for the fact that they went in, and I don't want to say they got outpaced, but they definitely didn't control the midfield as well against a team like the Crash Impactors, who are a little bit more expensive, maybe a little bit more well versed in master speed. And it definitely shows that, you know, they had a lot of saves. I definitely think they gave up the midfield that entire series.
Yeah, if you look at just the time spent in defensive half versus offensive half for each team, for the Crash Impactors for the series, it was almost 50-50, which is an absurd number. For reference, the Stagnant Snails were all between 69 nice and 75% in their defensive half. And so they could not get out. And they got to figure out why that was, right? Like there's a number of reasons that could be, whether it's boost starvation versus control versus bangs versus whatever, right? We're just not letting them, we're just keeping the pressure on our own half. And that you can't really win a game if the other team is driving around your half of the field for half of the game. It just doesn't work like that.
So I do need to point out, and I can confirm all this. Doodle, as you know, is Chips in chat saying they were in VC after matches until 3 a.m. I can confirm that. I was there for most of it. They went in and did a review of the VOD, watched the entire thing over together, talked through, like kept rewinding, like total review, and then did it again in actual replays. This team, there's a reason why they're 15-17 with the lowest MMR of all time, and that's because they work absolutely incredibly hard. So as much as like that was hard to watch, I think it was good for this team because they were really able to kind of grind and learn from it. It'll be interesting to see what happens going forward.
For sure, for sure.
Sometimes you just need that wake-up call, you know? Like, yes, they've been I would argue that they've kind of been overperforming for the first half of the season and whatnot. Like, I think that they're all good players, but I personally did not expect them to be around 500 by this point. And I think that's awesome, but they've been waiting for a series like this, right? Where it's okay, all of the mistakes, the reason that we're a little bit low sal, those all get exposed. And I think you're right that this could do wonders for this roster, as you can't learn if your mistakes don't get exposed. And for them to get exposed for this long, I mean, imagine, I'm sure they were doing the same one or two things for the entire series, right? Think about how this series goes if they change that and all of a sudden the pressure shifts. I don't know. I think that there can be an unbelievable amount of growth from just one series if the team takes it and runs with it the way that you're talking about.
Well, for sure. And they're proven winners. I mean, they've been there. They've done that. They've marched through the playoffs before. They know what it's like to be under pressure. So I definitely foresee this team learning from this, moving on, and potentially being a really solid team towards the back end of the season.
They have, 7 rings in their starting lineup, I think?
Yeah.
1 for Chips, 2 for Skullsy, 4 for Moose.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's a lot of rings. They know how to win. They know how to improve. They know how to team together. They know how to talk. They know how to review. They know how to respect each other, right? Like, there's...
Oh, okay. All right.
But, like, if anyone can take this and really flip it on its head, it's going to be a team that has been together for that long, So it'll be good. It'll be fun. It'll be good to watch.
Rob, we've got some really awesome, fun things to watch. We've got some records that you've been following, my man. I think it's about time you go ahead and fill in our people about what's going on.
Alrighty. So, I was supposed to tell you that we should make a graphic for this, so we can maybe do this another time. But I'll give you the stats. So in Premiere, you have a whopping actually 6 records on watch right now. For the assist record, it's 59, and there are currently 4 players between 31 and 33. So there's already 4 players that are over halfway to the assist record in Premiere. That is Prada, who was Lyrics, Wolf, Leonis, and Wicked. So that'll be fun to watch. Your MVP Premiere record is on watch at 25, and Anti already has 16 of them. So that will almost certainly fall. The saves record, 128. Anti, how does he get those MVPs? By not giving up goals. 71 saves, 128 is the record. He's on pace to break that. The savior record, following the save record, it's 24, and Anti already has 17, so he's also close to that one. The cycles record is 25, and Wicked is over halfway there at 13 cycles. That was also one of the players who is close to the assist record. And the shots record in Premiere is 224. You have 2 players, Monster and Wicked, at 118 and 114 respectively, both on pace to break it. So a lot of records breaking, or in jeopardy of breaking in this top tier. You won't see that in any of the other ones, actually, which is quite interesting. Moving on to Master, the MVP record is 24. You have 3 players who are just about halfway there. Jackson's at 12, Ant Credible is at 11, and Gaherpaderp is at 11 as well. The Savior record is 22. Jackson is at 12, so over halfway there. And the Cycle record is 22, and Jackson is also over halfway there with 12. In Elite, you only have 2 that are on watch. Shot record at 239. Avatar Man's is at 123, so just over halfway there. And then the Cycles record is 23, and Yoza is at 12. The Veteran record, these are a little bit of a reach, but I wanted to give the tier something. So the Cycles record is 26, and you have 5 players tied at 12. So they're all 1 below halfway there. So there's a chance that if one of these players has a really strong second half, they can make it. Alpha Chuck, Lil Chris, Blue Eyes Thunder Thighs, The Real Potato, and Shay are all at 12. And the Savior record, it's Blue Eyes Thunder Thighs and Ditto at 9, and the record's 22. Now this one is fun. In Rival, you have your save record at 121. And Laban is at 77. She is going nuts. Lots of saves happening there. Savior record is 20. Laban, you guessed it, is at 16. That may break by the next time that we meet to talk about this. So let's keep a real eye on that. And then that's it for Rival right now. Chally, assist record is 62. Pink Pepper is at 36. Cycle record is 21. You got Merciless, Cryptic Games, and Pink Pepper at 9. And the Savior record is only 16 in Challenger. And a player by the name of JPD is already at 11. So that one may fall. And into our final tier that have records to keep an eye on, we have Contender. Their goal record is 85. You have Light MCC YT, who has 47 goals with 8 less games played than every other player. So really impressive there. But Yummy's at 48. So you have 2 players on pace to break that one. You have your hat trick record at 13, and Light already has 8 hat tricks in 24 matches. Crazy stats like that. Assist record is 48. Balto's at 31. Close there. And then Saviors, the record is 14. You have 3 players at 7. Balto Storm, Shragaholic, and Shark 06. And these are the fun ones. These are the all-time records that we need to keep an eye on for falling. So here we go. The all-time, regardless of tier, record for Saviors is 26, set by Slop in Season 14 in Elite. Anti currently has 17, and Laban currently has 16. So both of them have a real chance at setting the all-time Savior record in any RSC season in any RSC tier. And with the Savior record comes the Saves record, also set by Slop. Anti's at 71 in total, and Laban is at 77. It is worth noting that there's only 14 match days in Prem, but there are 16 in Rival. So when it comes to the all-time records, Laban does have a slight advantage, but Anti is making this really, really close. And this is the craziest record that I have ever seen. This is going to lead into our next segment here. Angel, in Veteran, has played 32 games and has broken the all-time demo record of 180, set in Prospect in Season 16 by the Salty Lobster. 188 demos in 32 games comes out to almost 6 a game. The exact math on that is 188 by 32, 5.875. Yeah.
Ooh.
Per game for 32 games. So just absolutely unbelievable stuff from her.
Speaking
one of
of
the craziest records.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of Angel, I actually, because of this and because of the amount of hype that it kind of built up with the league and what was going on, I actually reached out to Angel and said, hey, can I get a bit of a word from you? I asked him 3 questions and said, hey, can you give ahead and give me answers so we can talk about this a little bit? First question here. With the record originally being 180, and you've now broken that record within 8 weeks, are you going to continue to run the season as normal and push the record as far as possible, or are you going to maybe slow down a little bit on demos and, focus on anything else? And they said, I believe I will continue what I've been doing, getting demos as I'm rotating and helping my team by playing my role as disruptor. Having good players on your team that you can trust is key. And I'm not gonna lie, man, that's true. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to extend and take a demo, you really have to rely on your teammates to be there to follow their rotations and make contact with the ball appropriately to give you time to rotate back.
Well, not only that, but Angel's also 17 and 15. So it's not like they're throwing their record to try to go get some demos. Like, it's working. Like, I believe they're in playoffs right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just wild numbers.
Yeah,
I mean, we talk about some crazy demo numbers that have come through the last few seasons. For the record to be broken at this point of the season is just insane. I think it really goes to show, and we've seen this for a while now, that just the Rocket League meta in general is getting more demo heavy across all levels. But still, to put up those kind of numbers this way through the season, and for it to be working, to be winning games, just crazy, just absolutely nuts.
Not only that, this is, how many players do we have every season? 1,000? Like 900? Right,
Yep.
right? 800? We're in season 18 of RSC. I don't think we have that much turnover, right? It's not 1,000 new players. Let's call it 10,000 players have had 10,000 total seasons in RSC. This record is the ultimate. It's the number one out of those 10,000 seasons, and it just got shut down halfway through at the midway
It's.
point.
Do you remember when Steph Curry like completely revolutionized
Yeah,
three-point
yeah,
shooting for the
yeah,
NBA, and
absolutely.
it went from like
Yeah.
160 to 400? That's
Yeah,
what we're
this
seeing
is
now
that,
with demos.
yeah.
But I'm glad that Tech brought up changing the meta, because number two, the question here actually goes into that a little bit. I said, hey, your teammate Brames is currently listed third in the tier with 60, putting your total combined demos between the two of you at 248 through
Jesus
8
Christ.
match days. Does this show a culture of utilizing demos for the team, or would you say that demoing is more of an individual goal? And they responded with, I would say it's not so much a culture of utilizing demos, but rather a playstyle and mechanic that is highly underrated and underutilized. I've been able to show Brames and my team the total value and huge amount of damage that you can cause when you disrupt or take someone out of the play. Because of this, my team has been able to get more demos as well, and I'm not going to lie, man. When Brames would tell me, like, hey, people are leaving from scrims, they just don't want to play, I can see that. I'm not going to lie. If you've got one person who's at 180 averaging 6 a game, and you've got Brames who's averaging almost 2 a game, like,
But
8
Brames is also
demos
close to breaking that record on pace.
Yeah, he's almost
Yeah.
on pace for that, which is
Yeah.
wild, by the way. But the fact that they're averaging like 8 demos a game between just 2 of their starters, that doesn't even include the other 2 people on their team, it's nuts.
At some point, like, if you're scrimming them, though, you gotta learn to play against it, right? Like, you have to,
You would think so.
or not
I
only.
mean, like, if you're gonna be mad at that, why did you ask them to scrim?
Yeah,
like-
it's not like you didn't know.
Like if I want to learn how to deal with demos, that's who I'm going to scrim. If I don't
Yeah.
want to learn on how to do that, I'm just going to
Stay
scrim
away.
someone else or play ranked.
Yeah.
Like, you know what you're getting into
Yeah.
here.
You can't be surprised when the person who has the demo record is like annoying to play against in the scrim.
And- So my third question here was a little bit of a heat, almost like an ego check, just to see how they're feeling. And I said, hey, the original veteran record for demos is at 139. At your current rate, you should easily double that number, because I mean they're shooting, I think, at 376 is the double mark if they continue at their same pace for the entire season. I said, do you foresee anyone in the immediate future even having a chance at breaking whatever record you finish with? And they said, there are definitely people out there who can demo like I can, though I'm not sure if they'll ever be in RSC. To the players trying to break the record, you may try, but be warned, demoing and being good at it while also being able to stay in rotation is a learned skill and is very difficult. If you demo chase, you will put your team at a disadvantage and lose pretty much every game. And we've seen that before with some other tiers where a player has really demo chased the whole season and it's become detrimental to their team. It's not paid off in wins, and this team is still winning a decent amount. But yeah, I like the confidence. I like the, hey, you might try, but be careful, because you might mess up along the way.
I would almost think that they would have a better. I would just expect them to either have a better significantly or worse significantly record. Like, I'm surprised they're 500, because I would think that they are either like, that's 200 and something demos, right? Like, if you capitalize on even half of those, that's 120 goals, right? So, like, are these demos actually even like helpful? Like, if there's 500 team and you have over 250 demos already, like, I don't know, I'm just surprised. That's over 8 a game, we said, right? Like,
Yeah.
I would think that would at least lead to an additional 2 or 3 goals.
They've had a decent strength of schedule, so it might be that they've just gotten through some tougher time so far. But I think this is something that's going to need almost a deeper dive going into it, just to have a better understanding of, is it translating to wins currently? Would it translate to wins later on in the season? And how that's going to play out.
Yeah.
I would love to pull some replays and kind of analyze that. But another part of that probably is, and it sounds like from the first question, is that beginning of the season, everyone getting used to that playstyle, because I mean, even just things simple as like, if I'm playing with people that don't demo normally, you're thinking, oh, someone else has the ball, let me turn around and shadow them. And then the difference of knowing, oh no, they're going to get demoed, so that ball's going to be free, so I shouldn't be turning around to start a shadow.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to take, or it probably did take several games to kind of like get on the
Adapt.
same page and adapt and be able to understand and read the same things. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was a slow start. But I would, like I said, I'd really love to like pull open those replays and see what the replays are actually causing, or see what the demos are actually causing.
For sure. We'll have to definitely revisit this, especially I think if we revisit these records at the end of the season and just kind of be like, all right, we talked about it at the midpoint. Let's see who actually broke it. I
Yeah.
think that'll be a big part. We can maybe do a big breakdown of the demos and how well it paid off.
Let's do a quarterly check, because we're at the exact halfway point, right?
Yeah, we could shoot for the 3/4 mark, and then
Yeah, so we do
and then the
3/4
final.
and a season. I think that'd be cool.
Dope. Well, gives us a bit of a plan of attack. While we're here in the series suggestion, I just want to lob you guys an potential opportunity that came up. So Arch and Nick M. Well, Nick M specifically reached out to me and he said, "Hey,
That's the homie.
I've been talking with Arch, who is they're in charge of media for the RSC EU, and they paid, if I remember right, like £1,300 or €1,300 for their overlay and everything, because they had it all custom made with a nice clean look. But they're actually willing to, depending on how much it affects our broadcast, like actually give us an updated version for RSC-NA, so we would be very similar in appearance to theirs across the board, and we would not have to pay out of pocket for that. So there's a really good chance that we might have the opportunity to look like RSC EU in terms of appearance. I was just wondering what you guys thought about that, and if you thought that was a pretty good route or plan of attack.
I definitely would. I mean, RSC-NA does a really good job with everything for a free league that doesn't give out prizes or anything. Our RSC EU is just on another level. And they're on another level because of funding and money and all that. But if we can stay free and stay out of the money and still be able to reap benefits from them, I'm all in, man.
Yeah, anything to increase our quality. And for what it's worth, I also think that, I mean, how are people in North America going to learn about RSC EU if it's not through RSC-NA, right? So I think that they're helping RSC grow in every way is kind of the responsibility of the people who are looking to take these leadership roles. And I'm not saying it's their responsibility to like give it to us. I think that is awesome. But I also do think that like it helps everybody, and in a really positive way. And I'm always for increasing the quality of our content.
For sure. For sure. Well, I think that takes care of that segment pretty well. We can move on to the last of the night. We can talk about some week 5 predictions. Now, we don't have anything week 5 on the docket for stream games. I know Rob is potentially having one set up. Rob, you want to explain that a little bit here?
Yeah, I was talking to Auntie for like an hour and a half before this, and he was mentioning that the Tarbage Grucks were looking to set up a stream match against the Hurricanes for Wednesday, which would be a 23-9 and 21-11 premier team playing each other. I think in the Tarbage Grucks, that 21-11 team just traded for Lyrics, right? So, or what is it, Prada now. And so they may even be better than their record shows. And the only team that's between them and first that's better than their record is the Hurricanes. So it would be really interesting to see if they just 2-2'd the top team, where do they match up with the team below? right? And I think the Hurricanes might want to make a statement here too. I did 2-2 them when I subbed up to
Okay.
Preb. No. What I'm saying is that Lyric and Anti, or Prada and Anti, are a completely different beast than I could ever dream of being.
Oh
Right?
yeah,
Like I
no,
watched both, yeah.
I watched them play against each other. They were actually on stream, I think,
Yeah.
towards the beginning of the stream, beginning of the season against each other, and they both played lights out. Like we already knew Ansi was top 5 player in the league, prem wise, if not top 3, and then Lyrics or now Prada comes in and absolutely stomps the competition. This is going to be a scary duo for any team to play against throughout the back end of the season.
I was watching a replay of Lyrics because Nick M actually and I were talking about like speed in Rocket League, and I believe that this player had played the single fastest game of Rocket League and RSC this season, with like an 18:11 speed, just an unfathomably high number. Yeah, that's the face that I made.
I thought I was fast at like 1580. I was like, oh, I'm speedy. 1810?
That was just for one game, to be fair.
That's still, dude, that's like hold the throttle and the boost open and boost from boost to boost, and then you
what's
get
unbelievable is that this player, they had 6 goals against Anti's team in this replay, and was hitting double taps with just unfathomable control.
Yeah.
And so you have what I genuinely believe to be 2 of the top 5 players on this roster, man. Like I know they're not even in first, and we keep talking about them, but like that is going to be a really, really tough ask for anybody to come out and play against. I think they're 2 of the top 4 right now in RPV as well. It's just, I mean, yeah, they both have a 99.7 and an 84 in Prem. Like, it's just like, what are you supposed to do against that?
Lose.
Unless you're Interstellar, I guess, and you have a 90 and an 89. So there's a couple. There's these top teams in Prem, right? And I think this will just be another data point on how these top 4 stack up against each other, and that's kind of the question moving forward for this tier. Is these top 4 teams that are beginning to push away from the pack, how exactly do they stack up with each other?
For sure. Anything from you there over to Mr. Tech?
No, I mean, I'm hoping they get it worked out. Hope they get that on stream. I'd love to watch it.
Yeah,
I
would love that matchup.
I definitely want to see them, and then I also want to see. I need to talk to the captains sometime this weekend between Vikings and the Necrotic Nerds in Rival, because they are first and third, 25 and 7, and then 22 and 10. And I'm like, hey, I need to reach out to them and be like, hey, can you guys get on stream as well? Like, let's get some really awesome close matchups at the top here.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity for this week, but we'll see. With only Wednesday's matchup being, potential game day, we'll see what we can get on stream.
Oh yeah, no matches on Monday. If you didn't know and you're watching, yes, no matches on Monday. So don't. I mean, you can like set up scrims and stuff, but don't show up to matches expecting to find something. There will not be anything there.
For sure. Well, fellas, anything else you guys want to talk about before we kind of wrap things up for the night?
The only thing I need to say, because I was asked to do so, is Trippin used to be really cute. That's all I got.
Used to be.
He's not anymore. He's ugly as hell. But like, used to be really cute.
Shout out the old Trippin.
Oh man, shout out the old Trippin. All right. Well, my name is still Bas Radala. Hasn't changed here. Joining me as always, we got Mr. Rob and Tech. Thank you once again for being on stream with us. But we'll go ahead. We'll call it there. We'll show you guys the little bit of gameplay we have, and maybe find a game where I don't play as bad for the stream ending series. Y'all take it easy.